Welcome to Wellsprings of Faith. My name is Father Jürgen Liias. I am a Roman Catholic priest on the staff of St. Patrick's Church in the neighboring community to here in Stoneham. We air this program here in Melrose, Mass TV. I believe I was told recently that we're up around our 400th show. So welcome to our 400th show. Wow. It's good to have with us today Tess McKinley. She's actually one of my former sheep from Christ the Redeemer Anglican Church, which was the last church I served as an Anglican priest before becoming a Catholic priest. And she's also married to a very dear friend and colleague, Dan McKinley, is an extraordinary church musician I've had the privilege of working with. Tess is the founder of and artistic director of Imago Stage Company. It's a Christian theater company, and I've had the joy of seeing a number of their plays because they are housed in my old parish, Christ the Redeemer Anglican Church. She's been with us before to talk about her journey and faith, to come to faith in Jesus Christ. So we'll kind of continue that journey and especially talk about her work with the theater company. Welcome back.
Thank you, Father Jürgen.
I remember someone saying to me one time, you know, when I was invited back a second time, someone said, it's not that hard getting invited the first time. The trick is getting invited back.
I'll take that as a compliment.
That is, welcome back.
Thank you.
And I want to mostly talk about your kind of work that you're doing now, but you have other parts of your life besides your theatrical experience and life and work. You're a teacher at Abundant Life Christian Academy, is that
Christian school.
School
every teacher is a little bit of a performer.
Yeah, you need. Well, as a priest is, you know.
Yes, that's true.
You're on
that's
stage,
right.
you
that's
know.
Right.
And so you're as well as a teacher, and I know our last time we talked, we had a wonderful exploration. It's been a number of years. I don't expect people to remember the program, but these things are all on YouTube, by the way, if they want to see Volume 1 of this show with
I should look for it.
And your journey, especially from astrology and other New Age things to faith in Jesus Christ. So what's new in your faith in the last, I think it's been about 10 years since I interviewed you before.
Well, in the past 10 years, like you said, a lot has happened. I've gotten married, and I am a grandmother of I'm sorry, not 5 yet, 4 grandchildren.
Oh, wonderful.
Yep. And
that's new, yeah.
Yeah, and I have continued as a teacher. I think I was teaching.
Yeah, you were in various places.
So I may have been in the high school level when I saw you at that time, but I'm now in the middle school, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And in the course of the past decade since we aired last time, I had several years where I suffered from Lyme disease and wasn't able to do a whole lot of anything. I had to decrease my work hours at school, and that was a rough time.
Yeah.
But I did heal from that to the point where when I reached a point of healing and better sleep and better health, I asked the Lord, now that you've given me my health back, what would you like for me to do with it? What should I do with my life now that I feel like I have it back? And I think we all need to ask ourselves at some point in our lives, what is the thing that we most desire? Because I think that that our deepest desires are placed there by God. It's really God in us. Yeah. It's the calling on our lives. And my deepest desire, I didn't want to speak, and a lot of people don't, because I think we're afraid it will never happen. It can't be. So I don't even want to talk about it. I don't want to think about it, and I don't want to dream about it. But I did feel a sense of, what is that thing inside that you most desire? I mean, there's all kinds of little projects and things that might be of interest, but what is the thing that really captures my heart? And I had, for a while, really wanted to start a theater company since I became a Christian, which, as you know, was when I was older in life. From our last interview, I really wanted to start a theater company that did redemptive dramas. Not the nativity story necessarily, not Christian drama
Yeah,
necessarily.
the obvious
The
things,
obvious,
the stories of the Bible and things like
right.
that.
But being an English teacher, I have a great love of literature. And there's so much literature that's rich with redemptive stories. And every redemptive story is a mirror to the redemptive story of Christ's sacrifice on the cross and his ultimate resurrection and our salvation through him. So I thought, that's what I really want to do. And once I could maybe articulate it a little bit, at least in my mind or my imagination, I started to think, how could this happen? So it was coming up on Advent, and I said, well, Lord, I'm going to pray through Advent about this dream. And then let's just see what happens. And talk to me during this time. Let me know if it's something I need to let go of, maybe. Sometimes it is.
Yeah, sometimes. You know, it's interesting, Richard. I remember a wonderful quote. I wish I had it. You've seen me preach enough. I have files and files of quotes that I use in my sermons. And one of them is about vocation. How do you find vocation, which is to say what God really means for you to do, the special thing. He said it's your deepest desire fulfilling a great need in the world. It's not just your desire, but it's related to, and that connecting that. And certainly I would say, if there's any dimension of culture that could use some redemption, it's what I call theater. I mean, you know, whether it's TV or the stage or movies, it's a whole area where the gospel is rarely seen. You know, I don't mean again Christian stories, but the paschal mystery of you know, redemption. And,
yeah, well, you know, we've done the classic stories that we've done so far. We're working on our 5th one now. We started out with A Tale of Two Cities, just because that's my favorite book. I love Charles Dickens and I love The Tale of Two Cities. It's my favorite book, and I really wanted to do it. And I wanted to do a musical adaptation of it, partly because I'm married to a musician, and that way we could partner together in this endeavor, and partly because, honestly, it's a lot easier to find good singers than it is to find good actors. And I thought, let's start there. And so far we've stayed with musicals. We did well, I looked at many adaptations, and you wouldn't think there are that many. Yes, there are. And I didn't like them. They didn't communicate the right redemptive message, or they were too sentimental, or it takes me a long time to find the right adaptation. And I found one that had only been produced once before, and
of Dickens.
Of this adaptation of A Tale of Two Cities. It was marvelous. It really was.
Well, I saw it, so I found it.
Oh yes, okay.
I've gone, I think the most, if not, I'm not sure all of them, but they are, you know, we put them on the calendar as soon as my wife and I, as soon as we hear about it. So,
yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
You're a great supporter.
That was a very moving, wonderful.
Yeah. So we started with A Tale of Two Cities, and then we did, right now we're working on Sound of Music. Before that was Pride and Prejudice. Before that was COVID, and we really couldn't do anything. So we did an audio, radio-style production of The Count of Monte Cristo.
I listened to that, too.
Yeah. And then before that, right after Tale of Two Cities, we had done Jane Eyre.
Jane Eyre, I remember that one.
And those were all musical adaptations, and you think, how can you do a musical adaptation of Jane Eyre? But you can. And music is a wonderful communicator, because really when someone sings, it's like Shakespeare. Shakespearean language is expressive because we are so filled with emotion that suddenly we just start to sing. So it's an extension of an emotional feeling that comes out in song. So that's why musicals help to shape the whole
I mean,
the whole
that's true
vision.
about worship.
Yeah.
Singing to the Lord is an overflow of our prayer.
Yep.
Augustine says singing is praying twice. It's something an exaggerated, in the best sense, a magnifying of our prayer into the musical realm.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And these stories all have a redemptive element to them. We do not proselytize. None of these stories comes right out and says, you know, Jesus died for your sins. Everybody come forward and you know, bow your head and pray. None of that happens. But those who have ears to hear will hear.
Yeah.
And it's a way to get unchurched people into the theater. And it's a way for even churched people, for Christians, to take a little bit deeper look at their faith, at what it really means and requires of them. You know, themes of forgiveness, of restoration, of redemption, are all woven into all of these stories. So,
And those are profound human realities for everybody, no matter, you know,
that's right.
all the issues of
That's
all
right.
those of human life. Yeah.
And actually, it's not just our audiences. Our casts and our crew are not all Christian, nor are they all churched. We started out with maybe a majority of people from Christ the Redeemer, but it is not that way now. I think in this production we have maybe 2 people from Christ the Redeemer. So we've broadened, and there are, I like to include people from other churches. I like to include people who have no religion at all, and I will pray before every rehearsal, during which time people can join or not join, you know, and then we get on with the work. But what's interesting is that the unchurched people will just maybe kind of look on at us, Christians, doing what we do. But I like that, because they don't see us doing baby Jesus, you know, simple stories. You know, they see us doing excellent work and bringing professionalism and excellence to what we're doing. And yet, we're Christians. And so they may not have had any connection with Christians or Christianity in their lifetime, because that's the generation of young people that we live and work with today. So they are exposed to Christianity in a way that maybe they never would be before. So that's part of the vision, is to evangelize the process as well as the product, for the audience and for the performers and the backstage crew.
It reminds me of, in a very funny kind of way, of one of the people we used to support at Christ Church, and I'm not sure if we did at Christ Redeemer in our mission program, but he was I forget what country, it was Spain or something. He was a devout Christian, and he wanted to evangelize through soccer. Oh. And so he would be a soccer coach and create a soccer league. But so the primary goal was to play soccer and to bring people into it, but there would be prayer. And all sports actually have a kind of moral dimension to them, you know, if you really, both games themselves are a kind of moral drama, but also learning how to play, you know, by the rules, play with integrity, you know, love your foe and all the kind of stuff. There's a lot in it. And he just said soccer can be a vehicle of the gospel. Certainly theater is even more obviously a way that one can be a vehicle of the gospel.
They're both team sports.
That's right, that's right. So well, tell a little bit, you know, I was going to ask you, before you got into the present company, a little bit your own theatrical journey. I mean, you've...
Well, I attended New York University Tisch School of the Arts as an acting major, and then I went on to perform in off-Broadway and regional theaters, summer stock companies. For a little bit of time, I did start a small theater company in New Jersey. And then when I got married and had my children, kind of turned the corner, and I began to teach children, first dance and then drama. And so I had had a lot of exposure in the theater world, and then I became a Christian after my second child was born. And I thought, oh, well, now I'll never do theater again, because I'm thinking about some of the shows that I was in, and I said, well, I couldn't even work in the box office, I don't think, you know. And so that was depressing, and I thought, you know, what am I going to do? This is what I love, and yet now I love the Lord. How can I serve Him?
How can these two loves get together?
Yeah. So many years went by, you know, I was raising my children, teaching theater, and eventually then directing some theater in the schools. And then, you know, to come back to this post-Lyme disease moment of praying through Advent and really hearing in so many different ways, through Scripture, through my own private meditations, through sermons that I listened to, a confirmation that, yes, there's a green light. Go forward with this. And so I went in to see Father Tim, who was rector at the time, and I said, this is what I want to do. And he's not a particularly artistic person, and he said, what? and I, you know, I tried to lay out how it would work. And he said, well, okay, we can try that. Maybe in a year from now it'll take you. I said, no, how about this fall? So he said, okay. I don't think he really knew what he was getting in for. So I started to talk about it a little bit at church, and people said, you want to do what? And nobody really knew. So I gathered together, and there's many stories, many God stories about how this thing came to birth. And so we had a cast put together, except for one major role. And it was, you know, the week before we were supposed to start rehearsal. And I said, if I don't have somebody in this role, we don't have a show. I have to tell all the actors I have to cancel everything. So I was chasing people out in the parking lot, anybody with pants on. Hey, do you want to? I was desperate. Well, we had the first rehearsal, and I remember praying the week before. I said, Lord, I need an actor to play Dr. Manette. And I sensed the Lord say to me, when do you need him? Rehearsal's next Wednesday. And that was the prayer, and I heard nothing. I thought, okay. It was half an hour before the rehearsal on Wednesday, half an hour, I get an email from one of the, there was a teenage girl, her father emailed me and said, well, I would be willing to play a small role if there's anything that's still available. I said, come to rehearsal, and I handed him the script. It wasn't a small role, but he did splendidly.
God's provision.
Not only did he do splendidly, but he found something within himself. He came back for the next show, and the next show, and the next show, and he grew as a person, and with his family. It became a very meaningful experience for him to be part of this.
Well, you've given me two sermons, you know, in that. I mean, one is that sense of, you know, I love there's a passage, you know, at the end of the feeding of 5,000 where Jesus says, pick up all the fragments, that nothing be lost. And I've always said that a wonderful image of, in the fragments of our life, nothing gets lost, you know, even the bad things in our life, God uses for good.
Yes.
We give everything to him. But particularly, you're not the first person I know who's sort of been in one world, and the passion of their world was something like theater, and then they became a Christian and felt that that was the end of that passion. But then God brings that passion is not the end of that, but he brings it back to the person. But now it's new, it's different, and now it's unto the Lord. But it's so. All those pieces of your life are not lost. And then, of course, the second one, more obviously, if God's behind it, unless the Lord builds the house, he who builds in vain. I've certainly learned that as a Christian leader. You know, I was always kind of lots of ideas, but I discovered the ones that, you know, were from God were the ones where God would always provide. And he would often leave me hanging, you know, too, and then he, just to show that it's his provision, and then you know, you're cooperating with him. He's the great stage director, so to speak, and if cooperating with him is the joy of the Christian life.
Right, and every single production we've done, the Lord has been teaching me that lesson I will provide for you when you need it, but I'm not going to tell you in advance how or if.
Give us this day our daily bread, you know. Whatever we need for today, he will give us, but not.
Right.
Then he goes in the Sermon on the Mount. You know, don't worry about tomorrow. The evil of the day is sufficient unto itself.
Yeah.
I love that line. There are enough troubles today. Don't worry about tomorrow, but I'll take care of you tomorrow.
Well, I'm a worrier, so
I think anyone in leadership and creativity, or you know, you see the creative vision, and you know how easily it can go bad or fail. Right. But if you really know God's behind it, then you discover over and over He provides.
Right.
So you're working now on Sound of Music. I gather you just started rehearsal?
We've been in rehearsal since the end of August.
Okay.
Yeah. So I chose Sound of Music because I, in addition to wanting to do relevant, redemptive stories, I want also to reflect what's going on in the culture. And with the war in Ukraine, I thought, you know, the onslaughts that happened in World War II with Germany and Austria is a very similar situation, a very similar story. And not only the parallel with what's happening with Ukraine and Russia, but also what's happening in our world, not just our country, but you know, abroad. We are all confronted with new morals, new interpretations of, you know, of gender, of religious values, of our own history, what's true. And with all of these things changing and the church changing, some churches changing, it becomes very muddy and confusing. And in The Sound of Music, there are characters who are dealing with exactly that. The character of Max, who is the one who kind of puts the family together and organizes the Salzburg Concert Festival publicly for the family to perform, he's not really a Nazi sympathizer, but he's a go along to get along kind of guy. You know, it's like, I don't want to make waves, I want to make friends, not enemies, so let's all get along. And that's how some of us find ourselves today. It's like, well, you know, I don't want to make anybody angry with me. I don't want to make waves. I'll go along with the program, you know. And then the character of Elsa, who is the woman that the Captain von Trapp would have married were it not for Maria. She is very full of her prestige and position and wealth, and she doesn't want to let go of that. So if letting go of that means that she has to, that she would have to be sympathetic with the Nazi Party, she's willing to do that because she doesn't want to let go of what she's got. Yeah. You know, I'm important, I'm wealthy, I have a position, people think highly of me. I'm not willing to let that go. So some people are that way too. Yep. It's like if I say anything different than what people want me to say, I might lose my job, or my position, or my money, or everything. And then there's the character of Rolf, who is the young teenager. I am 16 going on 17. He's the 17 going on 18. Who really, he joins the Nazi Party, I think, more because of what it looks like from the outside, external identity of, I get to wear a uniform, I get to have an armband and a hat, and I'm important, and you've got to look up to me, you know, Heil. And so it's that kind of an external identity without really knowing the causes that he's supporting. So that too is, I think, represents a lot of our society today. We're trying to figure this out. And who are we? Or are we Captain von Trapp? Will we stand against the onslaught of a stream of changes in our culture? Will we stand against it and say, no, I will not fly the Nazi flag. No, I will not bend my knee to that belief. So here's 4 different ways that people deal with change. Yeah. Political change, social change, cultural change, religious change. it's not black and white, it's
Yeah.
gray.
Yeah.
And I think maybe we are all of those things at one time or another. We're in a period of time in history right now where, especially as Christians, we're trying to find our way. We're trying to navigate. We have fellow Christians who've gone over here and others that have gone over there. And we're trying to find out where truth lies.
Yeah.
And it's not easy anymore.
No. That's a wonderful, I think, most of us, I don't know how many times I've watched Sound of Music, particularly now with my grandchildren, 3 little girls, and, all the fun and the beautiful songs. But behind it is this incredible drama. This is World War II. This is, Nazism. This is, and so, it's sweet to sing these songs to little children, but the drama of life in the backdrop. And it's sort of interesting to, I'm looking forward to seeing it and see how that plays itself out, even as we're singing, doe of thee, a female deer.
Right. Well, I've asked,
drop of golden
I've
sun.
asked the costume designer and the lighting designer and the set designer. I've shared with them my vision for it. That underneath every scene is an element of danger. Is an element of impending evil. Because if you think, the scenes are a little bit different in the stage play than they are in the movie. And there's a couple of songs in the stage play that are not in the movie that are particularly compromising in terms of a person's political position. But the scene with the children in Maria's bedroom, there's a thunderstorm and the children are afraid and they come into the bedroom and they sing the Lonely Goatherd song. And so they're prancing around and having fun, and it's this up-tempo, lively music, but during the song, there's a crash of thunder, and then there's another crash of thunder. And that's a very clear evidence of what every scene has. Every scene, there's something unspoken. There's some subtext. So that by the time we get into, and I have certain things that we're going to be doing with red curtains that become more and more red until finally, in the final scene, I'm hoping to just drop 4 Nazi banners, which will be shocking, I hope, to the audience, but intentionally so. Because, we may think, oh, good heavens, how could you displace a Nazi flag? We all know that's horrible. But at that time, everybody was waving them. Everybody had them in their windows and doors.
Look at it, as a child, I was born in Germany, and
oh, that's right.
my mother, she was a young girl, but she was caught up, and my grandfather was actually a Nazi. He was part of the apparatus in occupied Poland. So you think of Poland, you think of Auschwitz. We're completely out of time. Not completely, we have about 1 minute. But it really, part of what you're saying is another truth about the Christian faith, that we're not fighting against flesh and blood, but principalities and powers. We are in a war zone. There is a war between good and evil, between darkness and light, between life and death, between truth and falsehood. And there's a demonic realm that's always at play in the human experience and human history. And we kind of sometimes forget that or are naive about that. And particularly sometimes we're naive about it being inside of us, the battle's inside of us as well as outside of us. But away all that, I can see The Sound of Music wonderfully. I can't wait to see it. So look it. Thank you so much. I'm sure it's always wonderful talking to you and catching a little taste of your wonderful creative vision as fused with your Christian faith. And so blessings on your heart's desire being fulfilled, particularly in this. It's Imago Stage Company. I actually checked the website. It's a beautiful website, Imago Stage Company. You can find it and see some pictures of the cast, also opportunities to help if you everything from stage directing to playing, music, all kinds of ways you can be part of this a wonderful experience if you feel called to that. So I hope you'll go there. It's Christ the Redeemer Anglican Church, Also, their website will probably post when the shows are, but Imago Stage Company. Thank you, Tess.